Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Deep Shelf, which is brought to you by Ninth Haven Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and games generally run about 90 to 140 minutes. Within the next 200 years, most of the Earth will be unable to support human life. Humanity will go on, but life will be fraught with strife as countries squabble over dwindling resources and habitable land. The Deep Shelf Project offers another way, a chance at a new life. We have gathered the brightest minds, the greatest explorers, and the most innovative builders to give humanity a chance at survival. The goal of the Deep Shelf Project is to build a colony ship to another world. Our destination is Proxima Centauri b. It is our best chance of developing a sustainable, long-term colony, but the resources and technology needed to accomplish this mission are vast. Only the oceans contain enough untappable resources to accomplish our goal. However, the very act of pursuing our mission will hasten our own demise. However, this is not a mission of charity. Whoever among you contributes most to the Deep Shelf Project will be granted seniority to lead the mission and shape our new home among the stars. Deep Shelf is a game of deep sea exploration, resource management, and technology development. You will take control over one of 4 factions and work towards developing their own area of the ocean in order to extract those precious resources and pursue their scientific goals before the end of the game is triggered. Join me as we dive in and take a closer look. So yes, this is a big, expansive game. You will be collecting resources, you're going to be doing some action selection here, you're going to be basically exploring the depths, trying to get those resources while trying to avoid the depth dragon, which we'll take a brief look at. But in general, this game has a lot going on, so I'm just going to give you the basics, but first let's take a look at the board. You have the shallows, and every area you explore is known as the shelf, so you'll be pulling tiles from a bag and placing them as you move your sub out and start to explore the areas and so forth. But you also have to start to upgrade your technologies so you can go to the depths, the deep, and explore there, because obviously the riches are going to be even better as you go deeper into the ocean. So basically there's 5 different resources you're after. Well, 6 if you count money, but in general the things you're mining out of the ocean, you've got palladium, you've got osmium, you've got gold, and then you have kelp, and you have slag. Now slag is kind of a wild. You'll have to refine it to turn into things, but in general you have those different types of resources, and when you pull them out of the ground they're going to be unrefined and you'll have a larger cube when you do so. And so if and when you do choose to refine this ore, you turn it into a smaller cube to show that visually on your board, but then you can take it to the marketplace and sell it. But these resources are going to be finite, so as you pull a tile out of the bag and place it, you also place a corresponding dice related to the number, and you'll start to tick it down as you mine the resources from there. But again, you're hastening the end of the game as you deplete resources and build and dig deeper into the earth in order to get those resources so you can escape. But that will also hasten the end of the game as you do so. And this is represented by the exploitation track on the main board. Now potentially you might move up 2 slots at a time, and you'll see that based on player count will show where the game will come to an end. So that's one of the ways for the game to end, is if you've moved all the way up that exploitation track. Now as you hit those orange areas on the track, if you end there, then you're going to be pulling an event card, and that event card is going to do numerous things. You'll be moving the dragon, and it'll be in turn, different players will get to do various things here. You'll have some benefit from the player that triggered it, but then you'll also be able to manipulate the marketplace, and the marketplace is all manipulated by the players, either by selling or by these events where you can adjust the track where you want it to be. So there are various things that can happen with these events, but they do move you through the game, so to say. This exploitation track is going to be triggered frequently. Now the other way for the game to come to an end is if you move on the research track. So this research track has benefits as you play through the game. You're going to get various things, you'll unlock certain things, but if you reach the end of the track and all 3 tracks have a cube at the end, well, that is another trigger to the end of the game. So, as you can imagine, there's multiple ways to score in this game. It's going to be based on how you performed against your fellow players and some personal performance. Now, obviously, whoever has the most points is going to win the game, but you have to take a lot of things into account. So, it's going to be based on your wealth, resources, buildings you put into play, different research, and different upgrades you've added to your player boards, all kinds of different ways you're going to pull these points together. And it might differ greatly from one game to the other and how well you did. Taking another look at the board, you'll see that we are currently set up for a 2-player game. Now, there's some variations set up based on player count. You'll see some areas here are impassable, and we've covered them up because of the limited player count, just giving you less board to work with. And then obviously in a full player count, you'll get all the board to deal with. So you'll see that you have your starting subs, your home base, and where you're first going to move into the map. Now, every player is going to get their own faction. It is asymmetric, so all these different factions are going to work slightly different, so giving you some nice replayability as you try to find the ones that work best for you or what you like. I like the fact that there's a nice variety of things. You know, they have different abilities, and like some of the factions might allow you to build an extra building when you do a build. So they just really play into maybe some of the strengths, some of the ways you like to play the game. But in general, you're going to be doing a lot of the basic same things. On your player board, you'll see there are several different types of buildings you can put into play and equipment. So through the course of the game, as you do so, you will be moving up the upkeep track, and the more you have in play, the more it's going to cost you to do certain things. But these different buildings, first you have the extractor. This is all about pulling the resources out of the ground. And then you have the smelter, which is all about refining the ore that you pull up. So again, you have larger cubes for the raw ore, and then once you refine it, it turns into the smaller cube of the same color. Well, a lighter color, I should say. And then we have worker complexes. These worker complexes are going to allow you to reduce the upkeep cost, which is very handy. And then we have superstructures, which are unique to each player and will add a new card, an action card, to your hand. And then finally, we have labs. Labs do multiple things. So really, putting a lab into play will allow you to take a scientist and put it on one of the bonuses at the top of the board. Now, at the start of the game, you're going to get one of those automatically, but you're going to get +1 to the extractor, +1 to the smelter, or +1 to research. So adding those bonuses into what you're doing is very handy. But having, you know, like extractor is going to allow you to pull more out of the ground faster. But you got to keep in mind the fact that you deplete those resources also hastens the end of the game. So I like that aspect for sure. And as you put labs into play, it opens up spots on your board to add anomalies. Anomalies are going to appear based on different tiles that come out, and you can potentially add them to your board in order to increase maybe scoring at the end of the game. Now, your other player board is your submarine board. Now, you'll be storing a lot of resources here. The surface storage is here, as well as the cargo hold for your submarine. You'll have some spots for that as well. But also, this is where all your technology upgrades will happen. You'll be taking them from the technology upgrade and putting them on this board, showing what you can do. Hopefully, you've upgraded your ship well enough that you can move out into the deep ocean. And also at the top of your board, you'll see that this is where you'll be playing your action cards. And this is where the action selection takes place. So that brings us to our action cards. This is where you're going to be selecting 2 cards to play, and the first card will go into that first slot above your board, but the second card, it may have some triggers at the bottom based on being the second card, but also means it will shift over and not be available to you on your next turn, which is a nice way to kind of balance the different actions and what everybody's doing. But everyone will get the basic same deck of actions they're going to be performing. Everything you need to know and do is written on this card. You don't need to reference the rule book at all. Really handy. It's very straightforward, telling you what to do. So we're just going to briefly run through these different actions, give you a feel for them. Obviously, one of the big things you're doing in the game is exploring, which is move. So you move your sub, and there's a momentum thing that can carry it and so forth, and you can upgrade your different subs and so forth. But as you move into an empty space, you're going to be drawing 2 tiles, either from the shallows or from the deep, and you're choosing one of those to put into play, and you'll put a corresponding die there as well based on the resources that it calls for. And then you can also potentially move a crawler if you have a crawler in play. But crawlers do need tunnels. You see these areas out on the board with little long blocks. Those are represented for your tunnels to allow those crawlers to move around. Now, crawlers are key to moving resources back to the surface. Or you might choose to construct a building. All the costs for the different buildings that we talked about are located on your player board, and you'll pay that in the different resources that you have, and you may have to move up the exploitation track if you've built a smelter. Of course, you're going to be extracting the raw material from the ground. You'll be pulling it up using your extractors or your sub, and you'll have to pay the upkeep cost in order to do that based on the buildings and things you have in play. And then you're going to obviously be processing the ore. You'll get some money for doing this right up front, but also you'll turn those larger cubes into smaller cubes as you process it. And when they're in the smaller form, you can use them and sell them at the marketplace to get more money, because it's this endless cycle of getting the resources, getting the money that that you need to build more things. And obviously, as you process the different types of minerals, you're going to need a smelter in order to do this. So you can't process anything without a smelter. But if this happens to be your second action that you've taken, you're going to get some additional money for the different smelters you have in play. And then we have the science action. First, you have to discard a kelp, and then you can get rid of one of your surface refined ores in order to upgrade technology. Now there's various costs, and those costs are going to be changing through the course of the game. But you'll get that technology and put it on your player board. But once you do, then you can also move up the research tracks, and you can pick whichever one of those you want to move up, and you get the bonuses that it calls for as you move along that track. The last main action I want to talk about is your home base. Now this acts kind of like a teleport. It allows you to move your sub back to your port basically and resurface and move all your cargo back to your surface area or your surface storage in order that you can visit the marketplace and sell some things and get some money. So that's just your basic actions with that. It does act, like I said, as a teleport. And then of course, for your superstructures, if you've built one of those, you'll have cards in hand that specifically refer to those and how you can use them as an action as well. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the dragon, the depth dragon. Now, the dragon is going to be moved based on the exploitation track and the cards that come up, and other players are going to be moving them maybe towards you. If the red side is facing you, well, then it's going to increase your upkeep. But if a green side is facing you, then you're going to get an extra credit or coin in the game. So it's going to do multiple things. And if it happens to move onto a space that there are resources, it will destroy those resources. But it can't destroy buildings or take down all the work you performed to build out your colony or your faction area, so to say, and start mining and so forth. But it does add some hindrance. And the dragon doesn't like us digging deep into the ocean. So in the end, you're going to be calculating all your points after you've reached one of the two conclusions of the game, and whoever has the most points will be the leader of the expedition or have the most seniority as you make your way off the planet. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview. Everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now with that said, there's a lot going on in this game. I just kind of gave you the basics, and I really love the technology track, upgrading the different techs on your ship, and the different things it can do really add a lot to the game. And not only that, but the different factions, how differently they play with their different superstructures. I really enjoy that aspect as well, and messing with my fellow player using the depth dragon. But everything in this game is just simply beautiful. I love the miniatures, all the different buildings, really, really well done. And if you like kind of that slow grind to get all the resources and pull them together, but then it feels like this race in order to get everything you can get before the world comes to an end. I really like the theme. It works really well. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me. And until next time, we'll see you at the table.